This is the place where heaven feels close enough to touch, and where humans have fought for centuries to claim it. In the heart of the Middle East, where desert winds move like ancient whispers and sunlight burns softly across stone hills older than memory, lies a land unlike any other on earth. A land small in size, yet immeasurable in meaning. From above, it appears almost fragile, a narrow stretch of earth pressed between continents, balanced delicately at the meeting point of Asia, Africa, and Europe. But beneath that fragile surface rests one of humanity's deepest spiritual anchors. Because this is not merely land, it is belief made visible, faith carved into geography, history written not on paper, but in dust, walls, and human souls. No mighty rivers shaped its destiny. No endless forests hid its secrets. No oceans guarded its borders. And yet, this land became the spiritual heart of billions. How? That is the mystery that has drawn pilgrims, prophets, kings, and conquerors here for over 3,000 years. At sunrise, the land glows in quiet gold. Deserts breathe slowly under soft light. Olive trees stand twisted with age, and ancient paths stretch across valleys once walked by barefoot messengers of faith. Silence here is different. It is not empty. It is filled with memory. Every hill, every cave, every weathered stone holds echoes of footsteps long gone. Prophets who spoke of hope, kings who built dreams in stone, empires that rose believing they could own eternity. None of them lasted, but the land remained. At the center of it all stands a city both sacred and scarred. Jerusalem, a name spoken in prayers, whispered in longing, and written into the foundations of 3 great faiths. From afar, it appears peaceful. Golden domes glowing in sunlight, church towers rising above narrow streets, ancient walls wrapping the old city like protective arms. But Jerusalem is not simple. It is a city of paradox, a place where heaven and earth seem to meet, yet where human conflict has never been far behind. Few cities in history have carried such weight. Jerusalem has been destroyed, rebuilt, besieged, captured, and fought over more times than historians can recount without pause. And still, it stands. Not because it is strong in stone, but because it is powerful in meaning. For billions of people around the world, Jerusalem is not just a destination, it is the center of spiritual gravity. For the Jewish people, this is the city of ancient kings, the place where their holiest temple once stood, where prayers still gather at the remaining western wall, pressed gently into cracks between stones worn smooth by centuries of devotion. You can see it in their eyes when they arrive, tears not of sorrow, but of return. Because for many, touching this wall feels like touching history itself. For Christians, Jerusalem is where the story of sacrifice and redemption reached its final chapter. These streets remember the footsteps of Jesus of Nazareth, his teachings, his suffering, and the path he walked carrying the weight of a wooden cross. Pilgrims still walk that same path today, slowly, silently, as if time never moved forward. Bell towers echo across the old city, ringing through valleys where ancient prayers once rose at dawn. And for Muslims, Jerusalem holds a sacred place in the story of divine connection. It is from here, according to Islamic tradition, that the Prophet Muhammad began his miraculous night journey, ascending from earth towards the heavens. The golden dome of the rock marks that sacred point. Visible from nearly every corner of the old city, it glows under sunlight like a symbol of eternal faith. And beside it, Al-Aqsa Mosque stands in quiet reverence, its courtyards filling with worshippers whose prayers flow like waves across stone. 3 faiths, 1 city, each believing in its holiness, each bound to its soil. Jerusalem became a crossroads not only of trade routes, but of spiritual destiny. And when belief becomes tied to land, the land becomes more than geography. It becomes identity. As centuries passed, empires came believing they could claim the sacred. Babylonians marched through its gates. Romans raised their banners above its walls. Crusaders carved crosses into its skyline. Ottoman minarets later pierced its horizon. Each conquest left scars. Each departure left silence. But none erased the city's spiritual pull. Jerusalem did not belong to empires. Empires merely passed through it. Walk its narrow streets today, and you feel layers of time beneath your feet. Stone paths polished by pilgrims, market alleys filled with spice and incense, voices speaking languages carried here across centuries. Here, history is not behind glass, it is alive. It breathes in the rhythm of footsteps, in the murmur of prayer, in the distant echo of bells and calls rising together into one sky. And yet, beyond the sacred beauty, beyond the golden light and ancient devotion, another reality has always existed. Because the closer heaven feels in this land, the more fiercely humans have fought on the earth below it. Faith united billions in belief, but it also divided them in claim. Jerusalem became not only a spiritual center, but a focal point of longing, exile, return, and struggle. Walls were built, borders drawn. Stones that once heard only prayer began to witness conflict. And still, pilgrims come. Still, candles burn. Still, prayers are whispered into ancient cracks. Hope refuses to leave this land. Because beyond conflict, beyond politics, beyond history's weight, there remains something deeper. A sense difficult to explain that this land stands at a threshold between worlds, where the physical and the spiritual feel closer than anywhere else on earth, where heaven seems just within reach, even as humanity continues its long battle beneath it.
If this land has a heart, then Jerusalem is where it beats. Not loudly, not violently, but endlessly. From a distance, Jerusalem looks calm. Its stone buildings glow softly under the sun, their pale surfaces reflecting light instead of absorbing it. Golden domes rise above narrow rooftops, while ancient walls trace the outline of a city that has refused to disappear. But Jerusalem is not quiet. It only appears so. Listen closely, and you will hear centuries moving at once. Footsteps layered over footsteps, prayers overlapping prayers, faith spoken in different tongues, yet carried upward by the same wind. For the Jewish people, Jerusalem is not just holy, it is ancestral. It is the city of King David, the capital of an ancient kingdom built on covenant and law. Here, nearly 3,000 years ago, Solomon built the first temple, a structure believed to be more than stone, a place where heaven and earth were thought to connect. At its center stood the Holy of Holies, a space so sacred it was entered only once a year by one person in silence and trembling devotion. When the temple fell, destroyed by the Babylonians, something broke that could never fully be restored. Exile followed, but the connection did not end. Centuries later, after return, after rebuilding, after hope, the second temple rose, even more magnificent than the first. It became the heart of Jewish worship, until history repeated itself. In the year 70 CE, Roman legions crushed a rebellion and reduced the temple to ruins. Only one retaining wall remained. Today, that wall still stands, the Western Wall. Stand there long enough, and you will understand why silence often speaks louder than words. People approach it slowly. Some touch it gently. Some press their foreheads against its surface. Others slide folded prayers between stones smoothed by centuries of human touch. This is not ritual. This is memory. This is grief and hope existing in the same moment. For Christians, Jerusalem holds a different weight. These streets remember the final days of Jesus of Nazareth. Here, he taught, he was judged, and he suffered. The Via Dolorosa winds through the old city, a narrow path marking the way of sorrow. Pilgrims walk it every day, some barefoot, some carrying crosses, some with tears they cannot explain. They stop at each station not because the stones demand it, but because belief does. At the end of that path stands the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Inside, time slows. Candles flicker. Incense thickens the air. Hands rest on worn stone believed to be the place where Jesus' body was prepared for burial. And beyond it, the empty tomb. For Christians, this is the center of resurrection, a reminder that suffering was not the end. For Muslims, Jerusalem is known as Al-Quds, the Holy. It is the third holiest city in Islam. According to tradition, it was from this land that the Prophet Muhammad began the night journey. Transported from Mecca, he prayed in Jerusalem and ascended toward the heavens. The dome of the rock marks that moment. Its golden surface catches sunlight like fire, visible from almost everywhere in the old city. It is not a mosque, but a shrine, a symbol of divine connection. Nearby stands Al-Aqsa Mosque, its courtyards filling with worshippers, their prayers rising in waves across stone floors polished by centuries of devotion. At certain moments, the call to prayer drifts through the city, echoing between walls that have heard the same sound for over 1,000 years. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. Three faiths, one city, each seeing Jerusalem not as shared, but as essential. And when something becomes essential to identity, it becomes impossible to surrender. The old city is divided into 4 quarters: Jewish, Christian, Muslim, and Armenian. On a map, the divisions are clear. On the ground, they blur. Children run through alleys without knowing borders. Merchants trade side by side. Prayer times overlap. The city functions not because it is unified, but because it has learned to endure complexity. Above it all,
The Mount of Olives watches silently, an ancient hill covered in graves, churches, and sacred memories. For Jews, it is a burial ground facing resurrection. For Christians, it holds Gethsemane, where Jesus prayed in agony. For Muslims, it is linked to the Day of Judgment. One hill holding three endings and three beginnings. Jerusalem does not ask to be understood easily. It challenges anyone who tries to simplify it. Because here, faith is not abstract. It is physical. It shapes streets. It determines calendars. It defines life rhythms. And it turns belief into something that can be defended or attacked. This is why Jerusalem has been conquered again and again. Not for gold, not for land, but for meaning, for the power to claim what feels eternal. Yet through every siege, every destruction, every rebuilding, the city remains, still breathing, still sacred, still unresolved. Because Jerusalem is not a place that belongs to the past. It is a city where the past never left. And as long as heaven feels close here, humans will continue to struggle over what they believe lies beneath it.
Beyond the crowded streets of Jerusalem, beyond the prayers whispered into ancient stone, the land begins to open. The air grows drier, the sounds grow softer, and the earth reveals a different kind of truth. This is the desert, a place many imagine as empty, but which in this land has always been full of silence, full of devotion, full of stories written not in ink, but in survival. The Judean Desert stretches eastward from Jerusalem, a vast landscape of cliffs, valleys, and sun-burned stone. At first glance, it appears unforgiving. No shade, little water, endless rock. And yet, for thousands of years, humans have come here not to escape life, but to understand it. Prophets walked these valleys, rebels hid among these cliffs, monks retreated into caves carved by time. The desert became a place of testing and of clarity. High above a deep ravine, clinging to sheer rock walls, stands Mar Saba Monastery. From a distance, it looks almost unreal, a fortress of faith suspended between earth and sky. Built in the 5th century, this monastery has housed generations of monks who chose silence over comfort and isolation over power. Their days are shaped by prayer, their nights by stillness. No modern noise reaches them here. Only wind, only stone, only time. The desert strips life down to its essentials, and in doing so, it reveals what matters most. Further east, the land drops dramatically, lower and lower, until it reaches the lowest point on Earth, the Dead Sea, a body of water so heavy with salt that nothing can live within it. Here, the rules of nature seem to bend. Human bodies float effortlessly on its surface as if gravity itself has weakened. White salt crystals line the shore, shimmering under sunlight like broken glass. For centuries, people believed this place to be cursed. Yet, paradoxically, it became a source of healing. Mineral-rich mud drawn from its depths has been used since ancient times for health and beauty. Even Cleopatra is said to have valued its properties.
But today, the Dead Sea is fading. Its waters recede year by year, leaving behind sinkholes that swallow roads and shorelines. A reminder that even the most ancient wonders are not immune to human impact. Near the Dead Sea, hidden in limestone cliffs, lie caves that once protected one of history's greatest discoveries, the Dead Sea Scrolls. Forgotten for 2,000 years until a shepherd stumbled upon them by chance. Ancient manuscripts preserved by dryness and silence. Texts of faith, rules of living, visions of the end of days. These scrolls opened a window into a world of belief before modern religion took form. They revealed how ancient communities struggled to understand divine will and their place within it. Here, in the quiet of the desert, faith was written, hidden, and saved by chance. Not far away, rising dramatically above the desert floor, stands Masada, an isolated plateau, a fortress carved into rock. Built by King Herod, Masada was designed as a refuge, a place to survive siege, to resist conquest. And in the year 73 CE, it became the site of a final stand. Nearly 1,000 Jewish rebels, surrounded by Roman legions, chose death over capture. Their decision echoes through history as one of dignity and tragic resolve. Today, visitors climb Masada at sunrise. As light spills across the desert, the fortress reveals itself fully, silent, defiant, a reminder that freedom has always carried a price. Further south, the land transforms once more. The Negev desert stretches wide, revealing colors hidden beneath stone. Here lies Mitzpe Ramon, a massive erosion crater formed not by fire, but by time itself. 40 kilometers long, its layered walls expose millions of years of Earth's history. During the day, its rocks glow in reds, yellows, and browns. At night, the sky opens completely. With no city lights to compete, the stars feel close enough to touch. This silence, this vastness, reminds visitors how small they are and how ancient the world truly is. The desert in this land is not empty. It is alive with memory. It holds the footsteps of those who sought God, who sought freedom, who sought meaning. And it teaches the same lesson again and again, that when the world becomes too loud, too divided, too heavy, sometimes the truth is found only in silence. Here, between heaven and earth, far from walls and borders, the land speaks softly, and those who listen never leave unchanged.
Yet no story of this land can end in the desert, because beyond the silence of monasteries, beyond the salt shores of the Dead Sea, beyond the ancient fortresses carved into stone, life continues, messy, complex, and deeply human. South of Jerusalem lies Bethlehem, a city known across the world as the birthplace of Jesus Christ. Pilgrims arrive here with reverence, stepping carefully into the Church of the Nativity, descending toward the silver star that marks the place tradition holds sacred. Candles burn softly,
voices lower to whispers. For many, this is where hope first entered the world. But just beyond the church walls, another reality rises. Concrete barriers, watchtowers, checkpoints. The modern separation wall cuts across land and lives, dividing communities, reshaping daily existence. Art now covers portions of its surface, murals of peace, faces of longing, messages painted by those who refuse to let silence erase their voice. Here, faith and geopolitics exist side by side. Sacred birthplace, shadowed by division. And yet, life does not pause. Markets open each morning. Children walk to school. Families gather for meals beneath evening light. In Jerusalem's old streets, vendors call out prices, spices color the air, and pilgrims continue to arrive from every corner of earth. In Tel Aviv, waves roll onto Mediterranean shores, cafes fill with laughter, and modern skylines rise from land once walked by prophets. Further north, Haifa climbs the slopes of Mount Carmel, its communities layered in culture and belief, a quieter example of coexistence. Because despite everything, despite history's weight, despite ongoing tension, this land is still home. Home to millions who wake each day not thinking of ancient wars, but of ordinary life, work, family, future. And perhaps that is the land's greatest paradox. It is sacred, yet lived in, contested, yet shared, scarred by conflict, yet filled with resilience. For thousands of years, empires tried to claim it, armies tried to control it, walls tried to divide it, but the land itself remains unchanged in its deeper essence. Still holy to billions, still beautiful in light and stone, still carrying stories older than memory. Because beyond politics, beyond borders, beyond human struggle, this place holds something timeless, a sense that heaven truly does feel closer here. In the glow of Jerusalem at sunrise, in the silence of ancient monasteries, in the prayers whispered at ancient walls. And maybe that is why humanity has fought for it so fiercely. Not for power alone, but for belonging, for meaning, for the hope that standing on this land brings them closer to something eternal. Israel and Palestine, a land where heaven meets earth, a land of faith, of beauty, of division, and enduring hope. And as history continues to unfold, one truth remains unchanged. Heaven may feel close enough to touch here, but the human story beneath it is still being written.